Sandy says read, and welcome to the channel. You guys, today we are going to do a review and discussion of, what is it? You guys, I just did a booktube tag and I have not moved from this spot, so my brain is in 1,000 different places. We are doing a book review and discussion of The Assistant to the Villain. The entire time that I was listening to the book, I was thinking it was the villain's assistant because that just sounds easier to me. This is going to be a trip. Get ready, you guys. Oh my gosh. Okay, before we even begin, I want to welcome you to subscribe to the channel because this kind of mayhem happens all the time. Y'all, if you aren't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Please welcome your friends to subscribe to the channel too, because here at Sandy Says Read, we do book reviews, we do booktube tags, we do all kinds of bookish stuff, and it is usually random, crazy, a little bit chaotic. There is mayhem and chaos all the time. You guys, I have to tell you, the assistant to the villain, which I am sure I'm going to call the villain's assistant a dozen times during this review. The Assistant to the Villain is the first audiobook that I have sat all the way through. And I shouldn't say I sat through it because I was doing lots of things, but it's the first book that I made it all the way through as an audiobook. All right, I do not have the patience for an audiobook. I have discovered I'm not an audiobook person. I'm not good at learning things through audio. I'm really good at reading things off the page. That's just the way it is. So this review, we need to keep in mind as I'm discussing, as I'm talking about stuff, we just need to keep in mind that I'm probably going to make some mistakes because I was listening to it, and I was listening to it from a narrator whose voice I could not tolerate. And I apologize because that is a very negative thing to say. It is a true thing to say, but it's a very negative thing to say. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well, and how I think that choosing a narrator who is not great is really a disservice for the author and the book and the story and the characters. I really do. Okay, so let's go over the specs first. The Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. This was published in August of 2023 by Untitled Red Tower Books. The print version is 352 pages. I looked that up. The narrated version is 13 long hours. 13 hours. The version that I listened to was narrated by M. Eldridge. Bless her heart. And the back cover copy, as it were, the publisher's statement, whatever, says, "Once Upon a Time meets The Office in Hannah Mayer's laugh out loud viral TikTok series turned novel about the sunshine assistant to an evil villain and their unexpected romance." I did not read that before purchasing and downloading the audiobook, because if I had, I would not have purchased and downloaded this audiobook. That is not anything I want to read. Once Upon a Time meets The Office I like The Office. I've watched the entire Office series, all the seasons of it, and I enjoyed it. I think it's clever, humorous. But luckily, this description doesn't really describe the book. Yay! The book is actually better than, the story is better than this description. This description right here is a shame. I didn't really find any moments in it laugh out loud funny at all, ever, no. But the fact that this thing is saying it's a TikTok series, it's a viral TikTok series, turns me completely off. I've heard nothing good about TikTok recommended books. I just haven't. There are booktube reviewers here on this booktube platform who do awesome and great rant reviews about books that have been made popular by TikTok. And I enjoy watching those reviews. They are humorous. The ones I watch, they are humorous, they're funny, they crack me up. But I've yet to find a TikTok. No, I've yet to see a book made famous by TikTok on this platform that I would have then gone and read and enjoyed. This one, the story, the assistant to the villain, the story was intriguing, and the story was, I'm not gonna say it was fun, it was intriguing. Okay, this is an honest review. I'm being honest with you guys. It was a fun story. It was, let's get into it. All right. Did I give you the Sandy synopsis? I did. Okay. I'm going to give you the Sandy synopsis, and I'm going to tell you that this review is going to have spoilers. From here on out, things are going to get spoiled for you. So if you want to read The Villain's Assistant, then you don't want to listen to the rest of this review. Although it's probably going to be fun in some spots. Here we go. The Sandy synopsis is: Evangelina Sage left the employ of the local blacksmith because the cretin tried to assault her. So she's wandering in the forest, washing her face in a stream that she notices is full of blood. Lo and behold, it's the blood of a dude who is all dark and brooding and mysterious. And of course, he's the villain. And this is our meet cute. The story ensues, right? Evie, we call her Evie, not Evangelina. Evie Sage, she is a sarcastic bitch, okay? Now, she's not as bad as a lot of the heroine sarcastic bitches that you find in fantasy and romantasy and sci-fi urban fantasy stories, okay? She's not unbearable. She's reasonable, okay? But she is what I would classify as a sarcastic bitch. She's the 20s. I think she's in her 20s. I think she's early 20s. She's a 20-something. She goes to work for the big bad. She goes to work for the villain because she needs the money, and she's not really afraid of him, okay? She's not really afraid, even though at this meet cute, he is injured, obviously, by the blood. He's injured, and he's hiding from the king's men who are after him and who have injured him. Okay, so she meets him, and he literally like grabs her and pulls her to the ground and covers her mouth so she cannot scream and pins her to the ground in a way that she cannot move. He is doing villainous things to keep her from screaming and squirming out of his hold. I mean, it's like an assault scene in the prologue, but he's doing it for her own good. And so that they won't, he's doing it for her own good. And so that they won't get caught by the king's guards, the king's men who are hunting him. And he explains to her why he has just practically assaulted her, which is not awesome and great. But she forgives him, she understands, and she needs a job. And so as they talk and as he's moving with her through the forest to get away from the king's men, he realizes she needs a job. She realizes he needs an assistant. It's a match made in heaven. And so by chapter 1, she's working for him. She works for him. She goes each day to Massacre Manor, where he lives and works. And he has an office full of people and interns. You guys, this fantasy world, it's well built out. Okay, what was it? Hannah Nicole Mayer built out a very in-depth fantasy world. Okay, well done. It has a lot going on. Okay, this villain who robs from the rich to give to the poor, he has an entire office built up with, obviously it needs an assistant. He needs an assistant there, but there's an office manager, Becky, and like Becky puts together payroll every week and issues paychecks to the workers. Okay, everyone gets a paycheck. So there's like paper money going on and coins going on. There's a lot going on. There was a lot built into this world. Okay. All right. But the scoop is Evie goes to work for this guy who regularly tortures people. He tortures people and hangs their heads in the foyer at Massacre Manor. Massacre Manor. I'll get it out. Now, we never hear what the workers do about the stench of that. That was one thing I was like, what are we going to do about the fact that we've got severed heads hanging around in the manor? What are we doing about the stench? We never addressed that. And I wish that we would have, because That's all I could think about every time we mentioned the hanging heads. I'm like, do they stink or not? Because I think they should stink. Okay, so Evie tries to help him figure out who is sabotaging him. This is a plot that we have running through the novel, other than their budding romance. We have people trying to sabotage the villain. We have people trying to ruin his business and take him down. And we figure out that this is at the direction of the king, King Benedict. All right, so one of the things that Evie has to do while working for the villain is help him figure out who is sabotaging his business. Now, I'm not entirely clear on what his business was. All right, I think, I kind of made that little quip that he was stealing from the rich to give to the poor. I think he really was just out trying to upset the apple cart for King Benedict. Okay, he's trying to overthrow the king's business. He's trying to steal things that the king is transporting to and fro, and then use those things for himself. For example, the king wants to capture these magical beasts called the Gouvre. So the villain, Tristan, decides he was going to capture them instead. There is a dragon that we don't realize that the king had the dragon until later in the story, but the king let the dragon go with this fellow named Blade, who gets manipulated into going to Tristan the villain and taking the dragon to Tristan the villain. And Tristan the villain brings them into his fold. This was all manipulation, but we have this dragon who comes in, and I really like the dragon. He's a clever thing. The dragon, though, did bring up a weird inconsistency for me early on, and this could just be because I was listening to it and not reading it on the page where I could absorb it better. But Evie, during one of her many asides that she has, she's thinking about how when the dragon first came, she could hold it in her hand like a little fledgling dragon and cuddle it and coo with it, right? She likes the dragon. But we also learn that the reason Blade came to Tristan, the villain, and asked for Tristan to purchase the dragon and keep it there and let Blade train the dragon there for Tristan, was because the dragon had become too big and too cumbersome for him to take care of. Like, he could not financially care for this dragon, could not physically care for it, so he brought it to Tristan to purchase. And that didn't make sense to me, because if the dragon was still just a little tiny fledgling, why is it too big financially? And I don't understand. That could just be misunderstanding things. It could just be me not able to connect the dots because I was listening to it instead of reading it. Okay, so there we go. Don't flame me for that. But yeah, I had trouble with that. Something else that was going through the story, consistently through the story, was this frog prince. This little frog who had a crown on his head, and his name is Kingsley. In this book, his name is Kingsley. I think I have my own interpretation of who I think, my own guess who I think Kingsley is. Anyway, the frog reminds me of a story I listened to on a record when I was a kid. When I was very little, the Muppets had a record called The Frog Prince. I think that was the title of it. I should have looked that up before I started. Anyway, this little frog, Kingsley, is a prisoner of the villain, okay? He's got this thing, and it's not clear whether he changed, this person into the frog, or whether the frog was already changed, and now he just keeps the frog. I don't know how it came about, but he's got this frog. It's got a crown on its head, and he's named it Kingsley, and he's keeping this frog prisoner, and he keeps it pretty close at hand, all right? This frog cannot speak words. Obviously, he's a frog. But he does have little signs that he holds up. Every once in a while, he'll hold up a sign with like one word on it. He'll hold up a sign that says danger, or he'll hold up a sign that says stupid. I don't think that was ever one of them. But anyway, he holds up signs from time to time. And he helps with miscommunication from time to time, all right? And it reminded me so much, like throughout the book, I kept thinking about this record that I listened to when I was a little kid, where, there was this little frog prince and there was a princess, and the princess had been cursed, so she could not speak clearly. Kind of like this frog prince can't speak clearly in this book, all right? And so I kept thinking of in The Frog Prince, where the princess could not think clearly because her stepmother, the evil witch, had cursed her. And the way to break that curse was to bake the hall in the candle of her brain. That's what the princess kept saying. And no one could understand what that meant until the Frog Prince figured it out. And he's like, it's not bake the hall in the candle of her brain. It's break the ball in the handle of her cane. And when you break the ball in the handle of her cane, the evil stepmother, when you break that ball, it releases the princess from the spell, and she's able to speak clearly, and she can be the queen. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking about throughout this book. For 13 hours, listening to the assistant to the villain, I was thinking about the Muppets. That's what was happening in my life. That's just how it was happening. That's what was happening to me. All right. Which isn't a bad thing. It's just that's what was happening. All right. What else? Let's see. I really liked the foreshadowing that her father, Evie's father, is a complete ass. Okay. This man, he is supposedly quite sick. He's quite ill. There is a magic sickness, a magic illness that a few people in her village have. We learned that Becky's grandmother has this illness. So there is something that Evie and Becky have in common. So even though Evie and Becky don't get along, there's a bit of a jealousy, a bit of a rivalry there between them. So even though they don't really get along very well, they have this in common. And Evie even says to her at one point, oh, I hate that we have this in common. And Becky's like, I agree. But they're starting to not necessarily form a friendship, but form an understanding. They're starting to, at one point in the book, they're starting to form this, like a truce. They're starting to understand, hey, we have something in common. There's more about us that is positive. There's more about us that can work together than will work if we're apart. There's more about us that will work if we're together than will work if we're at constant odds. I liked that message coming through in this book. That was a positive, good thing that I liked seeing happening. Even though I really, for a long time, I thought Becky was the culprit. I thought she was the one sabotaging things in the office. No, it was, spoiler, it was Evie's father. He's an ass. He's not really sick. He's pretending to be sick because of his occupation, because of all the machinations he has going on, because he's a jerk. He's an all-around first-class jerk. The things he set in motion, the things he did, he's a jerk. If you read this book, which I recommend reading it and not listening to it, if you read this book, you'll be able to pick up on those little things he does. One of the things he does is, Evie is the one who is working to provide for her father and her little sister. Her sister is 10. Okay, she's 10 years old, so she's still going to school. Yes, there's a public school system in this world. And she has friends at school, so she is still a little kid. Okay, so Evie is trying to support her sick father and her little sister so that her little sister can get an education. Evie is the one, she's the breadwinner. Okay, she's trying so hard. Okay, so when she comes home and she's got some coins from her paycheck, I guess she cashed it, I don't know, but she's got some coins, and her father is like, hey, can I have some of those coins? Because I'm feeling better now, thanks to Evie bringing a potion from work. I'm feeling better now, and I want to go to the pub, and I want to buy drinks for my friends. Well, Evie is so thankful that her father's feeling better. And she's so thankful that he wants to go to town. She's so thankful that he wants to go to the pub that she's like, well, yeah, I can give you a few coins. But he takes like the whole pouch. He takes everything. And she's like, oh, okay. And off he goes. He's a jerk. Okay. A jerk, a first-class jerk. There's so many moments that we see. It's like if I think back on them, if you're reading it, if you look back on them, he's just a jerk. And he just seems like he'll say, oh, thank you, and then move on to the next thing. Like he's not really saying thank you. He's just a jerk. And I liked the foreshadowing of that. So that when we got to the moment where it's like, hey, he is actually the bad guy, you believe it. You believe it wholeheartedly. It's like, I believe it. I've got it. I'm there. He is the bad guy. I hope that he gets stabbed. Yeah. We don't see him get stabbed because we have a book 2. I'm not reading book 2. I liked the Frog Prince. Great Frog Prince. I like that the author let Evie kill the guy who tried to assault her. The end of the book, I'm spoiling everything, okay, guys? Spoilers everywhere. I warned you at the beginning, spoilers everywhere. The guy named Otto is our blacksmith, and Evie worked for the blacksmith right before we met her in the prologue, okay? He tried to assault her because her father said he could. Her father said, oh, yeah, you can marry Evie. Propose to her. Take her. She's yours. Go for it. Oh, God. So the blacksmith thinks that Evie is his property. She works for him, and father gave him permission to marry her at some point. So, hey, what do you know? Well, Evie doesn't know that she's been betrothed to this guy. Evie doesn't know that she's his property. So when he comes on to her, she's like, no, thank you. And I'm still saying no, thank you. And I'm still saying no. And she tries to get away. Well, he stabs her with a knife. She still gets away. It was a magic knife. It's a magic blade. So that magic will come into play again and again and again throughout the story. And then at the end of the story, when she overcomes the magic and she uses the magic to stab this guy, Otto, and slit his throat and kill him. And I was thrilled. Hooray. I am so thankful that the author let us see Evie grow through that arc, gain control over that magic, and use that magic to kill the cretin who tried to assault her. Thumbs up for strong female characters getting to kill the bad guy. That was awesome and great. Now, we still have the bad guy of King Benedict out there. We still have a book 2 where that needs to be resolved. But I was very pleased to see Otto die, and I was very pleased to see Evie get to do it. Yes, that was very good. Let's see. I also liked the name Sage. Evie's last name is Sage, which can mean wisdom, which I don't buy at all. She's not, I didn't see her as a wise character, really. I mean, she was putting 2 and 2 together at times. Boy, did it take a while. She wasn't, so like I said, she was a sarcastic character. She had a lot of sarcasm going on, not so much wisdom going on. But sage, if you think about the herb sage as something that cleanses the air, she was a cleansing character for the villain. Okay, she went into Massacre Manor and she literally cleansed the air for him. I shouldn't say literally, it was a figurative thing. It was a metaphor, okay, but she did. She brought a sense of newness for him. He saw things differently when she was around, and that's how that romance started happening. Now, I'm not big on romance novels. I'm not big on romantasy. This wasn't like, it wasn't a torrid romance at all. I mean, the most they ever did was like hold each other. There was a passionate kiss when they were doing a ruse to get away from the king's guard. Okay, but it was clean. All right, as clean as violence could be. It was clean. It wasn't a torrid, dirty romance novel, but there was this romance going through there that was just kind of a will they, won't they kind of romance. The two were both constantly saying, oh, I shouldn't like him. Oh, I shouldn't like her. I really shouldn't like her because I'm a villain and I'm not supposed to feel these romantic feelings. That got annoying. Now, it could have been annoying because this narrator was the one saying it to me. The narrator, M. Eldridge, I don't know what it was about this poor lady's voice, but I did not enjoy the experience. I think I should have stopped after an hour and gone to some place where I could purchase the physical book if I wanted to finish reading it. I should have done it that way, because I believe that listening to it through this particular narrator's voice did a disservice to the characters. Here's an example of why. I mentioned on here, I don't know if I mentioned it during this video, I just filmed a booktube tag video a minute ago. Okay, so my brain might be confusing things. I'm ancient, I confuse things. But there is a booktuber here on the platform named Natalie Megan. She has the channel called Weirdo Book Club, and she does amazing, great rant reviews for book talk popular books. All right. And when she does this, she gives voices for the main characters. The voice that she does for awful male main characters is amazing. She does this voice that like deepens this voice and makes him sound like a total douchebag. That is the voice that M. Eldridge did for all the male characters in this book, even the villain. So Tristan, this villain that we're supposed to be falling in love with, this villain that we're supposed to believe is not as villainous as he's been portrayed, this villain who has, a heart of gold, he had the douchebag voice from Natalie Megan. So I was hearing the douchebag voice non-ironically. And I couldn't. So for 13 hours, I'm hearing the douchebag voice, and I'm supposed to be hearing it as a character that I'm supposed to like. And I couldn't. It was too much for me. I think that I should have stopped after an hour, and I should have purchased the book in physical format to read, but I wasn't that invested. I think it's the narrator's fault. And that's a terrible negative thing to say. I'm so sorry. But that was my experience. That's just how it was for me. You guys, the story was a good story. I got through it. I followed Evie's arc, and I liked the fact that she grew into that magic from that magic blade that stabbed her in the back. I liked that. I liked that she grew. That was good. Yeah. Now, it was a little disappointing that after she has this big climactic moment, she's gained some power over that magic. She's used that magic to stab the bad guy Otto and slit his throat. He's dead. The villain has been captured, and she knows this, and she's thinking that she needs to go after him. But first, she goes back to Massacre Manor, where she hangs Otto's head in the foyer. Okay, that's great. And she cries. She spends the night crying. She cries. And this is how she's coping with the fact that the villain has been taken. She doesn't ride off to the Gleaming Castle to get him back, to help him, to save him. She doesn't rally the troops to go save him. She cries. That was disappointing. That was weird. Now, she's been through a lot. I get it. But that was just a weird way for this first book to end. That was odd. Maybe it's the setup for book 2. I won't know because I don't want to read book 2. I'm not interested. I'm not interested because I'm not going to listen to it. You guys, that was the weird and very rambling review for The Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I'm betting that if I were to read the book, I would enjoy it more. I know I would enjoy it more than listening to it from that particular narrative style. You guys, every word that ended with a G was pronounced like wrong. I was longing for it to be done. Let's just put it that way. Thumbs up for getting through 13 hours of an audiobook that should not have been 13 hours. Thank you so much for tuning in.